Et je vous le dis ce soir.
I'm telling you this tonight with force. We are a people of builders. We will rebuild the Notre Cathedral.
The relics are important whether or not it really was Jesus' crown of thorns, for instance. Who knows? What's important is that it was a focus of faith, a focus of people's prayers.
It will never be reasonable, apparently, to say, hey, wait, if modern people are going to devote $1 billion to this, maybe it should be repurposed to serve a legitimate function in modern society. 900 million euros. 900 million. This is currently over 1 billion US dollars. This is a number so large that we're primarily accustomed to discussing the morality of spending this much money in the context of war. Now, many of my viewers will feel moral ambivalence about the still ongoing war in Afghanistan. Many of you will feel a sense of disgust and disappointment when you think about the last 18 years of warfare in Afghanistan. However moral or immoral you feel that fight is, right now there's a war in Afghanistan to prevent a religious fundamentalist theocracy from ruling over secular, free-thinking people. However few there are in Afghanistan. I don't know if it's 1% or 0.5%, or if it's all of 5% of the people of Afghanistan, but some of them, some, are free-thinking people who don't want to live under the dominion of the Taliban. Now I ask you, what is a more moral use of money? What is a more ethical use of 900 million euros? Rebuilding this cathedral, this monument to the pious ignorance of the Dark Ages, to the worship of the fragment of the true cross, or taking that same amount of money and devoting it now to helping the people of Afghanistan. Perhaps 900 million might be donated just to help now people escape, people who don't want to live under the dominion of the Taliban, to provide some kind of alternate life for them, because now America is giving up and going home, and pretty much everyone in foreign policy and politics has admitted to themselves that gradually or rapidly Afghanistan will revert to being a brutal religious dictatorship. What would you do with $1 billion, with 900 million euros?
Its roof beams came from French forests that no longer exist. Now those beams don't either. But some of its priceless artifacts were rescued by firefighters and clergy who formed a human chain to carry them to safety. These included the crown of thorns, which Jesus is believed to have worn on the cross. Lucinda Laird is Dean of the American Cathedral in Paris.
It's brought out in all of us how much we care, not just about the building, which is gorgeous and historic, but about what it stands for. Paris, France, Europe, the world, tradition, Christian faith at its finest. The relics are important whether or not it really was Jesus' crown of thorns, for instance. Who knows? What's important is that it was a focus of faith, a focus of people's prayers for hundreds of years. So the things themselves are not so important as what they stand for, what they mean to people, the faith they evoke.
And why is it that so-called atheist activists, people who are supposedly advocating for a secular future, like Richard Dawkins here, why is it that none of them object? Why is it that all of them now want to show how pious and sensitive and concerned they are that the cultural heritage of Christianity, of Christendom, should go on forever and ever? That they really feel people in the streets of Paris in the year 2500, in the distant future, our grandchildren's grandchildren, that people in the future should walk the streets being surrounded by these monuments to the faith of the Dark Ages forever and ever, even if it's at taxpayers' expense, even if it's 900 million from donors, that it should never end. Is that how you feel? That's not how I feel. Where do I meet atheists who are real atheists? Where do I meet atheists who have even a fraction of the vision and attitude of a rational future that they already had in France in the year 1789, in the year 1791, when they wrote a new constitution in 1791 that declared the people will elect their own priests. The people within their own church, within their own group, will have the right to elect who gets to speak at the pulpit. There will be no more authoritarian top-down control of religion from Rome or anywhere else. And in the same constitution, it declares that all the property of the church will henceforth be taken away and treated as public property. It will be taken by the government. There's a radical change. There was a group of people back in 1789 who were thinking about the future of France and who didn't want it to be a kind of fake Disneyland devoted to the medieval past. Because guess what? If you spend 900 million euros, you don't get an authentic architectural monument. You don't get to relive the past. What you get is something just as fake as a castle at Disneyland. You get a simulation of the past. And it's not a museum challenging the past or educating people. No. You're going to spend this money just to recreate something odious and oppressive that we should be, in a visionary way, thinking of a better future, a better way for what France is supposed to be 500 years from now. We should be thinking about the future with some of the vision, some of the challenge to tradition, some of the sheer reckless rationality that the French had back in 1789 and that seemingly nobody has anymore. Back in 1789, people were saying in France, hey, we don't want our calendar to reflect a bunch of religious concepts from the medieval past, a bunch of errors and just broken assumptions. We want to have a calendar that's secular and rational and makes sense, and we want a calendar that doesn't memorialize the past. We want a calendar that's rational and makes sense for the future. That's what they were saying back in 1789. And France itself has drifted so far away from these ideals that this is now shocking and unthinkable. And it's shocking and unthinkable within the internet forums that are for atheist activists. It's hilarious to me to see on Reddit/atheist, supposedly a forum for atheist activists, not only a declaration that the atheists completely support, the reconstruction of the Notre Dame Cathedral, but then that this post, they turned off comments, they controlled comments quite rapidly after it was put up, and they stated that it was the policy of that Reddit forum that everyone participating had to believe this, and anyone with a view to the contrary would have their posts deleted. Now, if that were a forum for pious Catholics or for Christians, I'd have no objection. It would make sense. These are atheists. These are self-identified atheists activists. But they're the same people who, when they think of the future, think that atheists can just go on celebrating Christmas forever and ever, who think that atheists can comfortably walk the streets of Montreal and can walk the streets of Saudi Arabia and Indonesia forever and ever, surrounded by church architecture and mosque architecture, that those buildings will never be repurposed. They'll never serve another social function. That whether it's at taxpayers' expense or the generosity of private donors, that billions and billions will be spent, no matter how many fires or earthquakes destroy that architectural heritage to rubble. It will never be reasonable, apparently, to say, hey, wait, if modern people are going to devote $1 billion to this, maybe it should be repurposed to serve a legitimate function in modern society. Whether that's as a museum that really analyzes and exposes the evil of the Christian medieval past, or, you tell me, something positive.
Dun, 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 dun.